All right, thank you everyone for attending our presentation this evening. Our title of our presentation is Let's Talk About Financial Aid, Hot Topics for HBCU Families. We have a series of programs that we are in the middle of putting on for HBCU students and families. If you haven't attended any so far, you can find them on cfnc.org/events. And you can find all of those there as well as some other programs. And so we just thank you for joining us and feel free to check out some other ones. We are recording this evening and we will send out a recording of the presentation once it's been made available and edited. My name is April Query. I'm the Regional and Community Services Manager for College Foundation of North Carolina. I'm just going to kick us off tonight. You're going to hear from 4 experts tonight talking about financial aid, but we're specifically going to focus on financial aid offer letters and verification and some other things. You all are going to hear from Soretta Broadway, who is our Senior Regional Representative with College Foundation of North Carolina. She covers the 919 area. You're also going to hear from Juana Hernandez. She is one of 2 of our statewide Spanish service representatives for College Foundation of North Carolina, as well as Mr. Sean Henderson, who is a program manager with the North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority. So we appreciate you attending, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot them over in the chat box, or at the end, you're going to be welcome to unmute. And chat with us as well. We hope to be able to make this informal this evening. So as I said before, our agenda is going to cover a few items. We're going to start off with financial aid offers, and we're going to talk about what to expect with those, as well as what those offer letters may look like. And then we're going to talk a little bit about verification, what that means for you as a family if you are selected for verification, as well as student loan information, specifically parent loan information, education loans for parents, as well as special circumstances. So as I said before, feel free to ask any questions that you might have. And at this time, I am going to pass this over to Mrs. Soretta Broadway.
Thank you so much, Dr. Query. I'd like to say good evening to everyone. And again, thank you for attending our session tonight regarding hot topics. So I want to just share a little bit of information with you regarding financial aid offers, because there are so many types of financial aid offers. We find that the most popular financial aid offer, of course, is, I guess I'm going to click on my side. Is that going to help? Or okay. There you go. Types of financial aid. The most popular one, of course, is grants and scholarships. That's free money that doesn't have to be repaid. And many of us, we love free money. So grants are looking at your residency, and in some instances, we're talking about our North Carolina grants, of course, and we're talking about scholarships that you've earned based upon merit and possibly need. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Self-help aid is another type of financial aid, monies that we've made through our employer or if we're self-employed, as well as loans that we will repay back with interest, but it's self-help because it's the monies that we have obtained that we're going to be using to cover the cost. And then, of course, merit-based aid, looking at the student's academics, any special talents that he or she may have, such as music, art, drama, athletic ability. And then we also have need-based aid. And we do have a grant that is referred to as the Pell Grant. It's a federal grant. It has nothing to do with residency, but it does have something to do with need. It's not all need or nothing. You can show a little bit of need and still be eligible for some of the Pell Grant money, or you may be eligible for the maximum amount. And then we also have a loan that students can borrow that fall under the category of need-based aid, and that is our subsidized Stafford loan. And of course, the government will assist the students with paying back that interest with that subsidized Stafford loan, and we'll talk more about that later as well. And then again, we have state grants that students and parents could be eligible to receive based upon showing some need, looking at the income, what the family is able to contribute to their child's education to determine whether or not they fall in that category as need-based. But I always like to emphasize that last statement. The family of the student is primarily responsible for the educational expenses of their loved ones. So it is our primary responsibility and they want to assist us. Now we have direct costs versus indirect costs. Our direct costs, as you can see in that column, is tuition, fees, room and board, meals, living on campus, on-campus housing is your room expenses, meals, of course, and eating food in that lovely cafeteria. And then you have indirect costs, and we place books and supplies under indirect costs. It could have fallen under direct costs, but the reason why we put it under indirect costs because it's really contingent upon what you're majoring in. Some majors require more expensive books, equipment or what have you than others, supplies. So therefore, you may not receive enough, you may not have enough money to cover the entire cost of books. So we decided to put it on the indirect cost. The transportation we're referring to is your personal transportation. That's an indirect cost, but you definitely want to begin thinking about it and preparing a budget for different breaks that you may have, such as Christmas break, Thanksgiving break, or going home on the weekends if you're going by your personal vehicle, if you're taking a train, bus, or plane. And then you have personal and miscellaneous expenses such as pizza money, pocket money, toiletry money. That's not a direct cost, but it's definitely a cost that needs to be budgeted. How much money are you going to be given as an allowance, while you're in school? Also think about health insurance. If you don't have personal health insurance, then you will have to purchase the insurance by that college or university. That student has to be insured while they're enrolled in school. If something should happen and they have to go to the infirmary or whatever, they want to make sure that all the students are healthy on that campus. So think about that as well. So you have your direct costs plus your indirect costs, which will equal your cost of attendance. Budgets may vary based upon categories of enrollment on campus, off campus, in-state, out of state. All of that is taken under consideration. Okay. And then we have finished completing the FAFSA. We have applied for the free application for federal student aid, but now what am I supposed to be doing? Is there something else I need to do? Is there something I'm waiting for? Well, let's talk about a few things that could take place during that waiting period. You may have to be complete verification. If you are pulled for verification, the college or university will contact you requesting for you to provide possibly an IRS tax transcript. Not to say that you did anything wrong if you're pulled for verification, but they do tend to pull about 30 to 33% of the students who have applied for financial aid on their campus. You want to make sure that you respond to any and all questions from the campus financial aid in a timely manner. They're going to give you a deadline in which they need to hear back from you, and you want to adhere to that. You may receive financial aid offers. Unless estimated, they typically arrive in February, March, or a little bit later in the spring, but look for that financial aid offer to be sent to you electronically. And you may want to compare financial aid packages from each college that you have applied for admissions as well as financial aid. Now that may be your decision, that may be the way in which you make your decision based upon what is being offered by that college or university. And then number 5, complete all steps necessary to secure offered aid you intend to accept. Okay.
Thank you, Soretta. So we're going to look over now some example of financial aid offers that a student may get from the institution. And it's just really important to, as my colleague Soretta was saying, to keep in mind that a student will receive their financial aid offer once they have completed FAFSA, once they have applied to the institution, and many times once they have been admitted. And so it's important to just remember that. So let's look at the first example. The financial aid offers can come in various forms depending on the institution. Some institutions may provide a paper aid offer. And so some of the things to keep in mind is that the offer is based on the expected family contribution that is provided to the student at the time that they complete the FAFSA application. And the offer, some of the things that we need to look for is the type of funds that the student is being offered. So it could include gift aid, which, as my colleague mentioned, includes grants and scholarships. So here in this offer, we can see those scholarship scholarships, and we can see the grants, so we can see all the gift aid. Also includes self-help, such as the loan. So we see the student is offered loans, and merit-based aid, which includes institutional scholarships. So for this institution, the student looks like they received some institutional scholarships that was merit-based and also can be need-based. So as we're looking at our financial offers, let's look at to see what type of help is being provided to that student, or what type of aid is being provided to that student. Also keep in mind that offers are typically broken down by semester. And you can also, of course, see what would be the total for the entire year, but it is broken down by semester. And you can see the total amount that the student is receiving. And many times it does include the total cost of attendance. That includes what my colleague Soretta was mentioning. But again, it's also important to keep in mind that when a student receives an offer, there are some action steps that the student and the parent may need to take. As, for example, they may be required to complete the student promissory note or a parent promissory note. And then if the parent does decide to get a loan, they may need to do a parent plus loan request. So those are some of the things that we need to keep in mind and look for as we're looking at these offers. The second example is an electronic aid offer that can come to the student from the institution. And so here's another good example, and I like this example a lot just because here you can actually see the actual cost of attendance for this institution, and we continue to see the estimated family contribution, which again, we get that from filling out the FAFSA. And so we see the cost of attendance, and this here breaks down what that cost of attendance is for the indirect and indirect costs that my colleague was mentioning. And so again, this is just another example. You can see the type of aid that the student is receiving, the total amount that the student is receiving for aid, and then the actual amount for the institution, or the estimated cost of attendance. Another example, another way that a student may receive their offer is through their financial aid portal. I tell students all the time, make sure that you are very attentive to your emails, that you are very attentive to the communication that is coming through your institution. And sometimes students don't realize that their financial aid offer is on their portal. And so it's just really important that students familiarize themselves with their portal and start getting comfortable, because they're going to be using it a lot while they are in college. But the financial aid portal is very nice because this is where, again, students can see their offer. You can, again, see the type of aid that the student is receiving. But in the portal, the students can actually accept or decline an offer. Students do not have to accept all of the aid that is being offered to them. Usually students will receive all the gift aid, and some students may decide to decline some loans. And so again, it's important to work together as a family and see what is the aid that the student's going to receive or accept, and what is the aid that's going to be declined. And then I also wanted to share an example from a community college. The ones that we shared were mainly from our examples from four-year institutions that have a lot more information, and they're a little bit more complex. And with the community college system, their offers are a lot more simple. But again, it's also very important that as you're looking at the offers, that there are certain things that we have to keep in mind. For example, some of the financial aid that is being offered to the student can be based on the number of credit hours that the student is taking. And it can be based also on the student's progress, academic progress, whether or not they're maintaining satisfactory academic progress. And also sometimes students can receive a refund check. So again, as we're looking at these offers, let's look at, okay, what information is going to be needed? What are going to be some next steps? And just working together with our students and understanding what are those, what is the offer, and what are the things that need to be done. So I also wanted to add that if you have any questions about your offer, or if you're sometimes students, they start to panic because they haven't received their offer, it's important to reach out to the financial aid office to ask any questions that you may have. And so there are dedicated individuals at each institution that are helping students, walking them through their financial aid package, and helping them understand the different types of aid. So we're going to take a moment really quickly and ask a couple of questions. I'm going to ask these questions, and then maybe my colleagues can help me answer these questions if they feel comfortable. But one of the questions that we get often are, can parents ask questions without students on the line? So if the parents call a financial aid office, can parents ask those questions for the students? Who would like to answer that?
I'll jump in and start, and then maybe some other folks can jump in also. That's a really common question. Thank you, Juana. Parents definitely feel like, you're footing the bill, you're helping with the FAFSA, it's your tax information. You want to be able to call the financial aid office and ask questions. But because of privacy laws, parents typically can't just call the financial aid office and ask questions about the student's account. I sent a check, did you receive it? The same goes for grades. You can't necessarily call, the registrar's office and ask for your student's grades. So a couple things about that is when your student is enrolling at the institution, oftentimes the financial aid office or the campus in general will be sending home some paperwork for the family. And somewhere in that paperwork, you may find a form where the student can fill it out and give permission for the financial aid office to talk to a certain family member or to talk to a parent. So we encourage you to do that. That way you have that done before your student even gets on campus. And if for some reason you don't get a form like that, I would definitely reach out to the financial aid office and say, my student's going to be a freshman in the fall, if that's your situation, and I'd like to be able to call and ask questions. How can I do this to make sure we've handled all the privacy concerns to do that? And otherwise, if a form like that isn't filled out, typically if a parent calls to ask questions, students will also have to be on the line. And so that kind of helps with that. Did anyone have anything else they wanted to offer about that one?
Hi, April. I think you pretty much covered everything. I just wanted to emphasize that last bullet point where it talks about what is the financial aid offer letter timeline. That's something that the families definitely want to be knowledgeable of, because it can vary from school to school. But it's one of those things where you definitely want to act on as soon as it becomes available to you, to thoroughly review it, to try to get an understanding of what the offer letter is presenting to you, and to immediately reach out to the financial aid office to ask any questions that you may have or the families may have in regards to what the offer letter is saying to them. So I just wanted to mention that I think that's very important, because the timeline can vary from school to school, and it can be very easy to become lost and lose your way in regards to meeting various deadlines to submit documentation if necessary, or complete various steps that are associated with the offer letter.
Thank you so much, both. Oh, go ahead, Soretta, sorry.
In addition, the first question, what are some commonly asked questions by parents on financial aid offer letters? I find that parents often want to know if the loan that has been offered on the financial aid offer letter, do you have to accept the loan? Do you actually have a loan? And they would say, well, I didn't apply. Well, it's a part of the financial aid package. The student might have said they wanted to be considered for loans or whatever when they were completing their FAFSA. And there's an additional application that has to be completed in order to have a loan. That's just put on your financial aid offer so that you will have met all of your cost that is required at that particular institution. But you don't have to accept the loan. That is optional.
Yes, thank you for that. Team, and I wanted to see if any of the parents had any questions, and just wanted to remind everyone that you're welcome to use the chat to ask questions. But right now, if you have any questions related to the offer letters, feel free to include them in the chat or unmute yourself. And if there are no questions, we will move on to our next piece of the presentation, which is verification.